Hi. Hello everyone. I'm Melia from the Global ABC. Welcome to the COP29 Buildings and Cooling Pavilion. I'm very honored today to introduce the session on district cooling in the Global South, delivering net zero energy futures and urban heat resilience. The COP29 Buildings and Cooling Pavilion is the hub for the cooling and building community to showcase that we have solutions and just transition solutions for built environment decarbonization and for the overall cooling community. Without further ado, I will introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Colin Stewart Sangsters. He's Senior Vice President and Business on... I will start again. I will start again. I'm very honored to have Colin, Senior Vice President and Business Development International and Oversight at Tabreed, presenting today. The floor is yours. Thank you very much. Slides? Ah, tu n'as pas de slides, non? Ah oui, bah alors.
Merci. Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm very pleased to be here today. And thank you all for coming to listen about district cooling. I know it's the last session on a Friday, so I appreciate you coming and sparing us some time. And hopefully we can get some interesting discussion and understanding of what district cooling is. Just talking to people just now, I realized that not everybody does know what district cooling is. So very, very quickly, and we'll see it, I hope in a little video in a while, but it's a mass cooling system. Instead of every building having an individual cooling system, we create one plant and a network that feeds many buildings in one go. It's efficient. It saves up to 50% of the energy, of the electricity that all the individual plants, building units would use. It's very environmentally friendly. You don't need to have your own cooling facilities. You can use the rooftop of your buildings for other things. It stops the heat spaces that we talked about earlier in the day. So lots and lots of benefits. When you walk around in an area that's district cooling, there's no hum of buildings, and this is, you know, it really you feel it in the environment straight away, and it has, because it saves 50% of the energy. It has obviously a big impact on our greenhouse gas emissions in key cities. So I'm from Tabreed. Tabreed, we're the leader in district cooling worldwide. We've been doing district cooling in the Middle East and particularly in the United Arab Emirates.
Hello? Hello? Working?
Thank you. Hello. Okay. So I was just going to introduce Tabreed. Tabreed is, as I was saying, the leader in district cooling, we say worldwide. We've been doing this starting in Abu Dhabi in 26 years ago, 1998. So we have lots of experience. We've made some mistakes along the way, but we really know what we're doing now, so we're very proud of what we do. We have two very important shareholders, Mubadala. Mubadala was created in Abu Dhabi for the future after oil. So I think, again, that's something very important. We're all concerned about what happens after oil, and let's accelerate that progress. Our other shareholder, our big shareholder, is ENGIE, and ENGIE's gone through a big transition as well. It's moved from a hydrocarbon burning energy business to really a renewables energy business over the last decade, let's say. So it's also very much into renewable energy, and that's why it stepped in as a big shareholder in Tabreed. And we feed off each other. We give them expertise, and they give us expertise. Now we're looking to the next phase. So we're trying to grow outside of the Middle East. We're starting again. It's still Middle East really, but in Egypt. We're extending into India, and lately we're considering also whether we should look into Southeast Asia and some other countries. You need cooling everywhere worldwide, even in my home country in the UK, in an office tower in Manchester, it's hot. You need cooling, and district cooling is the right answer for that. So I won't talk anymore. I think I've used up my time, and I'll be talking to you a bit later anyway. I think we have a little video to play, and then we have a couple of discussions through the panel to come after that. So thank you everybody again, and I hope it's a good session for you.
Thank you very much, Colin, for this inspiring speech. And now I'm pleased to introduce Shika Basin, who is the moderator of the upcoming panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to all of you. I actually, when you get into COP, it's Friday. I didn't even realize we're the last session on a Friday evening, because you sort of start losing track of days and times, in this little microbiome of ours. So just to quickly introduce myself, I'm stepping in for Lily Rihahi. She's my wonderful manager and boss. She heads the Cool Coalition at the United Nations Environment Program, and I'm supporting the secretariat there. And it's really my pleasure to be here and sort of introduce, for everyone's benefit, why we're here to talk about district cooling systems and district energy systems. 2023 was the hottest year on record, but then guess what? 2024 became the hottest year on record. A recent report has actually confirmed that more people are dying as a result of extreme heat than any other climate-induced impacts on the planet. That's a big challenge that we're talking about. So to avoid that from happening and make sure that our food systems, our energy systems, our well-being, our productivity, our economies, everything stays intact, we need to move towards cooling. Cooling, we know, is going to increase by almost 3 times over in the next, by 2050. And if we keep cooling in the way that we have been cooling, that's going to lead to an economic and environmental disaster. And it is exactly for that reason that it is important that we have the likes of the panelists that we do today, here with us today, to talk about more sustainable, more efficient, more sustainable being the key word here at COP29, applications that can help ensure that we are mitigating climate change while also adapting to it. Because it's not a tech solution only, it is a tech solution that is catering to human lives and livelihoods remaining prosperous. So with that, I'd actually like to, we have two very, very interesting panels, so we're going to keep them short, we're going to keep them interactive. I'd like to call on stage my first panel, if I can. You've already been introduced to Colin, so Colin, if we can have you up here. We also have Dr. Luong Quang Hai, who is from the Vietnamese Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. We're also joined by Professor Masood, who is the chairman of HBRC at the Ministry of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities in Egypt. And I am very, very pleased to be moderating this. I think for semantics, it might be nicer if I just sit next to you. Can you all hear us well? Okay. So, Colin, I think I'm going to start with you. Keep the flow going after Breed. You've been in the industry and we've seen the video, you know, for a very, very long time. You're definitely one of the most established entities in this space. Can you talk to us about what some of the projects have looked like, you know, and what are some of the lessons that you've learned so others don't repeat those mistakes?
A good question to start with. But let's not dwell too much on the mistakes because we're not going to make them again.
We call them lessons.
But yes. So our favorite project, the one I always talk about, is downtown Dubai. So it has a ring actually of 4 district cooling plants. It has a 35-kilometer network. So everything in downtown Dubai is cooled by this cooling system. So the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building, is cooled by our network. And all the prestigious buildings in the middle of that, the biggest mall in the Middle East, various very splendid hotels, and lots of other facilities, offices, and some residences too, are cooled by this wonderful system. It's potentially up to more than, we measure cooling in what's called thermal tons. So it's potentially up to 200,000 and more thermal tons of cooling. So it's big. To Breed overall cools something like 1.3 million tons of properties. So this is a big chunk of our project. Some of the lessons. So we started in Abu Dhabi with the military, and they called us to help cool some of their hangars and their Air Force bases and various other things. So that's where we began. We moved on to the Dubai Metro. And some of these projects, and then we built some kind of real estate supporting projects. And the tendency was for engineers always to over-design. So one of the first things that goes wrong is you have a plant that is capable of producing 40,000 tons of cooling energy, and the customers only need 20,000 tons. So now we're starting to well, we know that. So we tell the customers, you don't need that much. Let's build something a bit smaller, and let's not overbuild, because okay, we're making savings, but we can make even more savings by saving on the sizes of the plants we build. It causes friction. If you're trying to build someone for twice as much capacity as they need, they're obviously not happy. So we learn to be transparent. We learn to work with our customers, and it's very important that they understand what we do and they know exactly what they're paying for and what they're committing to, because it's a long-term commitment. So that's probably the biggest lesson we've had. But we've had many others along the way. Our plants now are much more modern, much more automated. We're getting in artificial intelligence. We're linking up with sustainable energy supplies, so much more solar energy is being used. We're linking some of our military plants directly to solar facilities. So there are lots of ways of improving how we do district cooling, and we're bringing down then the electricity that we use. So from more than 1 kilowatt hour per ton of energy, we're down to now something like 0.8 and getting even lower in the UAE. So all of these lessons together mean that we're able to provide much more efficient cooling than before.
Great, thank you for that. Actually, I'm going to move straight away to Dr. Hui, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So we've heard, there's enough of, there's almost like 2 decades of experiences and lessons now coming, and Colin just talked about off-grid systems as well that they're looking at, or solar-powered systems that they're looking at. Now, your country is doing a lot in terms of net zero goals and the ambition that you've put out. You're also a signatory to the Global Cooling Pledge, which, for those of you who are not aware, is the most ambitious political commitment when it comes to sustainable cooling. So I'm just thinking, when you think of the next steps in your implementation towards these targets, how is district cooling or district energy systems, how are these faring in your plans?
Well, thank you, Lily, and good afternoon, and thank you for having me. So go straight to your questions, and first of all, that we have our net zero target, well, like many other countries, seeing 2021, and then we have a lot of policies from the law system, then legally binding, and also the government decree and so on everything that we're trying to reduce GHG emission, and of course improve energy efficiency. And district cooling is one of them. And even though the term district cooling is very new to us, but in the past 5 years or so, there's so many companies that actually also already introduced district cooling into different types of activities in Vietnam, including like industry and commercial and households, district cooling. And then, we trying to, first of all, it related to the urban planning. And my colleagues from Ministry of Construction are very active about that, and because that's one of the idea that the investor and the contractor are very much interested in, because that obviously that reduce the cost a lot for the investor when doing the urban planning. And also is a lot more efficient for the user, for the end user as well, either that from the industry or the commercial sector or the households, especially that while in the big cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh cities, and we have a lot of skyscrapers and a lot of residential areas with so many households there, that district cooling can play a vital role in that. And for other areas that is not called urban, then that doesn't require like a lot of like what we call urban planning, but also the planning. Then we actually started thinking about a nature-based district cooling. That's probably something new to you, but in fact that when we looked at and examined the district cooling technology that we have today, and compared to what we actually already have 100 years ago, that we actually use rainwater to run through the wall of small houses, to cool the houses, especially in the direction that the sun that directly shine on the house. So that is one way that I think in many countries, especially in this part of the world, is already applied. And that is one of those things that with the support and of the today technology, that kind of nature-based district cooling for the household level that can be very good, and it's already part of the policy planning that we already have. So that is what we're planning to do in terms of district cooling. Yeah.
That sounds very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing the nature-based district cooling. It's the first I'm hearing of it. Moving to you, Professor Masood. Now, Egypt, of course, has been a pioneer, really, both in terms of regulations and implementation of district cooling systems. And you have been, the figure behind projects such as New Capital. So our congratulations on that. But we would also, again, really like to learn from, what lessons and barriers, you could share with us as we move forward in encouraging more people to adopt this technology.
Thank you for your invitation. I'm going to speak in a strategic speech about our role in Egypt concerning our institute or our research center. Our research center has been deal with the safe energy from about 20 years. We published our code for energy saving, and for district cooling, and also for green buildings, and for GBRS, the green rating system. So we have a long way and success story in this field. Concerning district cooling, the government has been leader in making district cooling in the capital, in new capital. You know that the new capital is, most of it is a governmental buildings. Most of the ministries has been transferred there. So most of the buildings there are a governmental building. So she began and make a two district cooling. One of them, I have been a designer for the steel structures in it. So in the beginning, I have been not convinced by the district cooling, but after it works, we see how it's making saving for energy and how it's making easier for ministries to be working in any time with convenient cooling temperature. Now we have the barriers which are speaking about it, is how to engage the private sector so as to work in this field, and how to give them as incentives how to work and how to make another district cooling. You know that the government is not only the one who is making upgrading and is making buildings and communities. The private sector has a very big scale in this field. So now we are making an incentives for the private sector in the law. You know that we are now making updating for the law concerning the construction. So we make as incentives how to make the private sector go in this field. There is a paragraph for this incentive for green buildings. You know that the district cooling or saving of energy is under the umbrella of strategy, national strategy in Egypt for how to change to green. So one of the saving energy is going to be with the district cooling, and we are engaging in giving them incentives in how to take another cost return, how to take another percentage in the area, in the build area. So a lot of ideas, we take it from another countries. We study the another countries how to change their culture to a green, and we take it, and now we are going to put it in the law concerning construction.
That's very, very encouraging. And I'm going to pick up on something that you said, that the private sector has a very important role, you know, in shaping this discourse. So going back to the private sector on this panel, I'm wondering, could you share with us some of the innovations or the process, you know, in which Tabreed has been working with cities or with governments, you know, to ensure that basic infrastructure like energy efficiency, like water, you know, sort of ramp up to the development targets, net zero targets?
So it varies. We started with a very commercial approach before. I think we were ready before the cities were ready to promote district cooling. So in the UAE, it's been a lot of commercial customer to supplier kind of arrangements, and then regulation has come in to support that and to make it fairer for everybody. So good regulations mean that we're able to invest because we know we have a certain level of return, and customers know that they're not going to be taken advantage of because the tariff is controlled and is all transparent, and the tariff increases aren't going to go out of, they're not going to go out of sight. So this is very important. We then work with the energy suppliers. In the UAE, in Abu Dhabi, it's critical that you work with the Department of Energy, the people that are producing the energy, the electrical infrastructure, because we save them money. We save them having to invest because we build our own plants in conjunction with their systems, and we need to use less energy. So they have to produce less energy. They need less substations and less infrastructure. Then we're working with the water suppliers to use treated sewage. So we, instead of using drinking water, which in the UAE is super expensive because it doesn't rain much, so we have to take it all out of the sea and run it through expensive desalination processes. So instead of using that super expensive water, we're now using treated sewage effluent in many of our plants. That means that we can use kind of second-hand water that would otherwise just be wasted, would be just rejected back into the sea eventually. So lots of things like that are helping us work better with our counterparts in the government and the energy sector. I was very pleased to hear about the urban planning. Happy to hear. I think that's crucial. In the early days, again, we were commercial and we just went off and built something and hoped for the best. Now we know the value and the need to work with urban planners and to be there at the beginning. Put the network in before the buildings are there, so that when the buildings come, we're ready. We build to size, so we build as needed, rather than building the whole thing in one go. We can just build enough to keep the first phase of a development going. So lots of progress, lots of advances there, just to make sure that we work well with our counterparts in the energy cycle.
Yeah, that's, I think, for any good project, right? The earlier the partnerships happen,
Yes.
really the better it is. And moving back to Dr. Hui, I wanted to understand, Colin emphasized the need for regulation. We've heard from Dr. Masood on the power of regulation, really. We're wondering, when it comes to district cooling, as you said, it's not something that's taken hold yet in your country, but how is the government thinking about a regulatory framework that can encourage its adoption?
Yeah, thank you. Well, because the district cooling that requires is a lot of changes in terms of infrastructure for industry, for the commercial sector, and also for the household level. But unfortunately, that is governed by different laws. For example, like when you mentioned urban planning, that we have also a law on urban planning. And then in terms of water resources, we have law on water resources. And then all those changes in the infrastructure development that would relate it to environmental protection and also some standard for infrastructure development as well. So all of those regulation needs to change and need to be integrated and to fit with each other somehow to promote district cooling. So what we started with, that with the urban planning, as you mentioned, and we are aware that is the most important thing, and but fortunately that for Vietnam, the water resources is been very important for us since the beginning, and in terms of the water supply and also that wastewater treatment and so on and so forth, and we have experience in dealing with a lot of the water issues, and so that is something that we already have a kind of a foundation for infrastructure already there. So what needs to change is in terms of the standard for district cooling to be introduced into the system. So that's what we're trying to do now. And it started with the Ministry of Construction and Ministry of Environmental, my ministry. So that's what we are trying to do, starting from the regulation on the urban planning and also the standards for different types of infrastructure development. And it is encouraging that the private sector are very, very supportive of that, and they want to support us with the development of all those standards. And in fact, a few companies in Vietnam and some other foreign companies as well, and they're working with us at the moment on that as well. Yeah.
That's very, very encouraging to hear. And you did mention the role of standards, and your ministry has been a pioneer in supporting the rollout of standards for district cooling systems in Egypt, and it's really set a precedence, for district cooling regulations around the world. We wanted to, if you could explain for our audience, what is the role that you foresee with these standards, and how is that to encourage greater deployment?
Concerning the engagement of the private sectors, there is a lot of incentives we put it. Our institute put the basis, the technical basis for any private sector want to go with it, concerning the code and the guidelines. And we have an experts working in this field. Dr. Ala, Dr. Sayed, there are experts working in this field, and there has been sharing in the district cooling code. Moreover, we have as intelligence excellence center. This excellence center, any private sector need to have any consultations, they come to us and we make the consultations. So we push technically, and from the technical point of view, any private sector need to go through this issue. I only have a question for Tabrid, because he speaks about the water and how he is going to let a source of water. Our colleagues has made a project in the Alamein. You know that it is a new city. By working by the seawaters, because they take the seawater from a very big depths, and it is cold, it's really cold, and they work with so as to be able to find a source of water to push it in the system. So I don't know what Tabrid makes in the Gulf water.
That's a great question. And we started the session with lessons learned. So that we have different experience with seawater. But when I started in the district cooling business, one of my responsibilities was for Bahrain, Tabrid Bahrain. And Tabrid, the northern shore in Bahrain is very dense, has very little water availability. And so we designed a plant that runs on seawater. And it's super corrosive. Seawater it eats your plant if you don't do things properly. And that's one of the lessons learned. If you're going to use seawater, you have to do it well. Our neighboring competitor in Bahrain did exactly the right thing. So they built a very good filtration system that cleans the water. They treat the water to quite a high standard. And then they run it through the cooling towers and the system, and it works perfectly. And it's very efficient. The water is next to free. And so this is definitely the way forward. And if you have cold water, so the other issue in Bahrain is that the sea is very shallow. So we don't go down very deep. So the water is heated by the sun. So we get very little cooling benefit from it. But in these areas, and we've seen the same in some other areas, we've looked at projects on the other side of the Gulf, where you can go deep out into the sea and take water from deep down and a couple of kilometers away from the shore. And there you can get some great thermal advantage for free. It's a very good source of cooling. Yeah. The other thing we do, which we've just started, is we've just started looking at thermal energy from bore wells. So we're taking geothermal energy from a kilometer down underground. So we use, actually it's very hot. The water there is very hot, but you can run it through a condenser system that uses the heat energy to produce cooling. So we're looking at different ways of getting almost free cooling. You still have to pump, but you get free energy from either the heat or the deep sea water. So these are things we're really working on now, and we'll explore further, depending on the geography of where we go. But the wells are a very good source of free energy.
I excuse you because Dr. Ala and Dr. Said has made a project how to make use of the cold water in Mediterranean Sea. So if it is possible to have the floor and to speak about their project.
Sure.
Thank you very much for this great discussion. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Ala Olama. I am an expert in district cooling, a postgraduate student of the Great British University. I'm a postgraduate student of King's College London University in refrigeration and air conditioning. And back in Egypt, I created the first two district cooling company in Egypt, Gas Cool and Gas Chill. Regarding what Mr. Sangster said about using the natural heat of the subterranean water, it's a great idea. We actually looked at using old gas bore wells near El Alamein, the city on the Mediterranean, where you can get 97 degrees C easily, and you can get out of it through a heat exchanger, hot water to drive an indirect fire evaporative indirect fire absorption machine to produce chilled water to cool El Alamein. So that's a great idea. It's very expensive, but in the end it pays off for itself because of the great power you get in. Regarding deep sea cooling, we started with El Alamein, and we could get temperature not as low as we wanted, unlike the Gulf where the maximum depth is between 100 and 140 meters, so you don't get much cooling. In the Mediterranean, you can go down to 3,000 meters, so you'll easily get 7 or 8 degrees C. But what is really interesting is the Gulf of Aqaba, where the cities such as Sharm el-Sheikh and Nuweiba are located. And there is an excess of 500 hotels, and they all need revamping their chiller or changing their cooling system. So what we are hoping to work on deep sea cooling is actually towards it's Sharm el-Sheikh rather than the Mediterranean Sea. Regarding the salinity of the water, although at the Gulf you might find salinity of 3,000 or 5,000, on the Red Sea it's no more than 2,500 to 3,000. In the Mediterranean it's fantastic, it's 1,000 ppm only. So we are a bit blessed from this point of view. So let me again congratulate you on an excellent discussion, and hoping that eventually we can find a way to drive district cooling more and more. And of course, Vietnam is a fantastic place where district cooling can thrive, and I'm very happy to hear, Doctor, what you are doing there. One last word, if you're going to do district cooling, please look at district cooling regulation. If you start with the regulation, everything will run in place. We have a problem around our areas is that we don't have enough codes for district cooling. We barely are touching on the regulation. Dubai have done some good work. The excellent work was done in Abu Dhabi. I wrote the paper for creating district cooling for Kuwait, but it's still not there. So look at regulation, regulation. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for that. So actually, picking up from where Dr. Olama left off, right? Regulation. What are the kinds of regulations that one needs to look at? Colin, if I can start with you, and we'll move backwards again towards me. What are the kinds of regulations, that companies need to look out for and would encourage both city and national level planners, to put in place?
So one regulation that I think suits everybody that we're getting towards in Abu Dhabi is one that says when you build something new, when you build a new reasonable sized development, you should consider district cooling. It's not mandatory, but it has to be studied. And I think that's fair, because it doesn't force anybody into taking a system they don't want, but it encourages them to at least to look at it, and at least then to understand the merits of what they're doing. So first, that's important. There's always a discussion about tariffs and pricing, and it's always controversial. And we see that in regulatory systems throughout the world. I come from the UK and look at the water industry in the UK at the moment, and the controversies around about the pricing and the tariffs and how that's all worked out. And I've seen the same in my travels around the world. In Southeast Asia, for example, I've seen real battles with tariffs versus capital expenditure. So we really have to get this feature right. But we have to give our customers the assurance that we're not going to run away with excessive tariffs. They have to be comfortable. So I don't believe in enforcing regulations on anybody, but I believe that regulations are a good thing to encourage the right kind of behavior. So it's a little bit light. It's not heavy regulation. We're not in a dictatorship, but we need something that encourages everybody, yes, to use district cooling, but to want to use district cooling and to know that if they use district cooling, it's going to be safe and it's going to be fair. So this is my key takeaway. If it's not fair, nobody wants to do it. So.
Okay, that's continuing down this way. I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the private sector getting involved as you're thinking about these regulations, right? And the necessity of partnership, I think, has come forth from all three of you in your interventions. So in Vietnam, of course, you're with the Ministry of Environment at the central level, but For city planners and for the private sector, what sort of partnerships do you see? What sort of interactions do you think will be necessary to really get the projects off the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Lily. In terms of the private sector involvement, first of all, that we know that what they really concerned about is that the business model when they want to use district cooling for their newly planned or existing infrastructure, existing buildings that they already have. So in terms of, I want to get back a little bit on the regulation there, and I totally agree with you, Colin, that the regulation should be developed in a way that to encourage private sector to get involved and to get end user to want to use district cooling. But it's important for the government. It's not only we looked at the good points, the plus point of the district cooling, but also other aspects around it. For example, for environmental issues, we haven't started on using deep sea water yet for district cooling, even though we know that the technology is available. But in Vietnam, well, fortunately that we have quite abundant water resources. But then, because we have a lot of water resources, we need to use it wisely, and then we have a system of licensing on water, either that surface water or that groundwater. So that water, if the district cooling, that would require a license for using the water resources for district cooling, and then it will be gone through a system which is not really a wastewater treatment. It's not really a water supply system. That's why I mentioned standard. So it's a new way of using water, because that water will go through the district cooling, and then it's become recycled water, and then we can use that again for district cooling technology these days. So that is not really wastewater. So we need to have another standard for it, which is actually a little bit a lot less complicated than license to treat wastewater or license to use supply water. So in a way that is actually very encouraging for investor for district cooling in Vietnam, and when they know that, but it just take a little bit of time for all of those standards and regulations to come out. And that actually reduce the cost for investor a lot. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. And then finally to you, the HBRC where you are, how are you helping integrate district cooling with passively cooled and efficient buildings to really maximize the impact and the tagline of what district cooling systems are supposed to stand for?
I want to say something before I am going to say about your questions, that district cooling is not only the solution. It is one of the solutions, but there is a lot of solutions, and I think our colleagues has a lot of solutions. I'm not an expert, but I stay beside them. They told me a lot of data and a lot of information. I don't know about it. I'm not an expert in it, but they have information that every area and every district have its own phenomena and its own design, which is compatible with it. So we in Toshka, in down of Egypt, we have certain area. It's very hot and it have no humidity. So they make another solution. They make direct and indirect evaporator system. So every area has its own design. District cooling is not the only solution for this. Concerning the other things which you're speaking about it, which is going to improve the building efficiency to be able to avoid the transfer of heat. We have a codes in this area. A lot of solutions is in this code, and we have make a guidelines also for any private sector to take it into consideration during the construction, so as to be able to prevent the transfer of energy. And we make an connection with the manufacturers of the bricks and manufacturer of the concrete, so as to take into consideration our specifications, so to prevent this transfer. And I think it's going to all of our work is going to be have a good return within 3 or 5 years, because the road is still long, and we in the beginning of the story. Okay.
Great, thank you for that. Yes, I'm just going to open the floor up. I'm glad I have an eager audience here.
I have a small comment. Okay, I am Dr. Said Chebel from HPRC, responsible for the codes related to HVAC and refrigeration. About your question about the link between the passive
Yes.
and the district cooling.
Yes.
From the starting from the initials, we divided all Egypt, into 8 climatic zones. Okay, depending on the all the climatic data, starting from the outdoor shaded air temperature, relative humidity, wind speed, wind direction, level of dust, and so. Okay, so we create 8 different climatic zones. With the energy resources in each climatic zone, we starting nowadays a new code, because the HPRC is the only authorized entity in Egypt to issuing the codes. We create a code called Sustainable Cooling in New Urban, whose link the energy resources with the climatic condition, with the type of air conditioning, all this linked with the passively resist buildings. And we design what is the thermal resistance for each building envelope for each zone. Okay, because of diversity in or different between the temperature from north of Egypt and south of Egypt, because at south it can reach 52 or 55 degrees Celsius, okay, as a shaded temperature, while in north of Egypt, at about 40, 42, like that. So the R value, the thermal resistance value, is a driving force for us, which is the answer for the relationship between the passive and district cooling. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions in the audience for our panelists? Okay, then I have a final one for all of you before I let you go. We're here at COP29, you know, political winds seem to be changing and flowing in different directions within this venue. I wanted to hear very quickly, what is it that you hope to take away from COP29?
So I hope to give something rather than take something away, which is the usefulness, let's say, of what district cooling really is,
Right.
and the energy efficiency, the savings that it can make. I want people to understand that it saves up to 50% of the energy that we'd be consuming normally,
Yeah.
and if people come away with that message. And they come away with the message that we need to plan for it. We need to. It's not just going to happen. We all need to work together. We need to integrate it with the other cooling solutions that exist, because it's not a one size fits all. Every scheme has a different one. So it's giving that message. I would like, if I take something away, is that I take away that I think people have started to understand a bit more the benefits of district cooling.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, well, that actually are very difficult questions, but as part of the negotiation team, then covering on mitigation and NDC and transparency and so on, I just hope that, well, that the next NDC 3.0, that we would be a little bit more specific with a more ambitious goal, and most importantly, that the means and the finance to do it. And of course, district cooling would have a piece out of all that. So that what I would like to see out of COP29. Yeah.
It is an opportunity to see all the ideas concerning how to save energy and to know the history and the experience of other stakeholders working in the same field about their experience in their countries. Today we have at morning we have a session with UNEP, and it has been an opportunity for us to speak about how to make a lab and what is a technical support. We are going to take it from UNEP to make a lab concerning LEC in our center. They have been very helpful, and they say that we are going to help us to make this lab so as to be able to make regulations for all the companies which work in this field. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And I just would like to say on behalf of UNEP Cool Coalition, we really believe in all of the effort and the work that you're all undertaking, and our ambition is very much to put the word out there to introduce this technology and all other sustainable cooling solutions to the world, to make sure that cooling finds its way into the new NDCs. I think that is a big one that a lot of my colleagues have been working on. Amar is sitting right at the back, and he's been leading that effort. And as usual, he's not listening to me. And so our intent remains very much to stand by you and to support all of your efforts. And thank you for being here with us today. Thank you very much. All right, we are going to move into our second panel discussion now. Thank you.
Can we take a photo with us?
Yes, we're going to have a second. So just for everyone's, I mentioned earlier, we're going to have two panel discussions. We're going to move into our second panel, so I'd request you all to please take your seat as I introduce. We'll have time for interactions and photographs after the next panel. We'll have time for photographs and introductions after our next panel. I'm going to invite the second panel up. Sorry, can I request you to take a seat? There's 3 other speakers who I need to call.
Okay,
Yeah?
okay.
Thank you. It's not over.
Sorry?
So, moving into our next session, I'm really, really happy to have Mr. David Elzinga, who's the Principal Energy Specialist from the Asian Development Bank here with us. And we have Mr. Lun Lido, who's the Chief Policy and Coordination Office, Department of Climate Change at the Ministry of Environment in Cambodia. And I believe we have a colleague from Tunisia joining us online, Mr. Hassan Aghrebi, who is from the Ministry of Energy there. Do we have someone online? Yes. Okay. Perfect. Hi, Mr. Hassan. Can you hear us? Okay, perfect. We can't hear you, though. Can you say something again, please?
Yes, I do.
Ah, perfect. Okay.
Yes.
So either the mic works or that works. So maybe, if it's okay with my other 2 panelists, I'll go over questions with Hassan first, so that we can, yeah. Okay, perfect. So, where are we? So Tunisia, Mr. Hassan, is, by the way, a lot in the talks here this afternoon. It seems to be a very interesting country for a lot of the people present here this, at this event. You and your country are placing a lot of importance on energy efficiency and renewables, and we'd like to understand, where does district cooling actually fit into this puzzle that you're trying to solve for?
First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute with you in the panel, and really a very fruitful discussion in the before panel. Panel number 1 is very interesting. As you know, Tunisia, we suffer with a deficit of energy since 2010, and we have a summer electricity power peak that is more and more increased year per year. For example, for this year, we have two peaks in the summer. In this way, district cooling is becoming an essential component of Tunisia energy transition, particularly given the country reliance on imported energy. And Tunisia faces high energy demand, especially during this hot summer, as I said. And most of its cooling needs are met through electricity-based air conditioning system. For example, 150,000 air conditioning system were sold last year in the residential sector, and 2 million air conditioners were installed in more than 50 houses, with a total capacity of approximately 1,700 megawatt. For this reason, it's the district cooling is a must and a key as I said, that it's particularly this among the efficient solution and key solution to save energy and reduce the demand of electricity. District cooling can contribute in Tunisia in energy transition strategy in several ways. Like the energy efficiency, district cooling system are more energy efficient than conventional air conditioning, reducing also the carbon emission and contribute to energy security because the district cooling reduce the country dependency of electricity importing, as well as the sustainability integrating renewable energy like sources like solar thermal in the district cooling system that can further align Tunisia energy sector with sustainability goals. For this reason, the district cooling represents a key solution of Tunisia pressing energy efficiency needs and play an important role on the country border in energy transition strategy. That's generally that we have concerned with this solution. Let me now to contribute to our goals and the goal of to attain the climate objective in the Horizon 2050. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, I think I will try and do this with all the panelists together. So I'll move to you, David, next. And, through the course of the first panel, of course, we heard a lot about the benefits, that district cooling offers, but also some of the massive challenges, which are regulatory roadblocks or not having the right regulations, also the high upfront cost, and the unfamiliarity with the technology itself. And so we'd really like to hear how, you and your team at the bank, at ADB are trying to solve for it and some of the experiences you may have had that you'd like to share with us.
Well, thank you, and really happy to be part of this panel. The issue of cooling, I think, as has been highlighted from a number of people, is just how much this is growing exponentially. And from the perspective of both climate change itself, but then also as you have rising economic benefits in societies, one of the first things many people will invest in is air conditioning. And one of the challenges, and I think it's great to have the opportunity to live in developing countries as I work for ADB, and in that respect, you interact and see what kind of decision making gets made at a societal level. And one of the things that I really reflected on is one of my helpers in my home. They were having some good opportunity. The husband and wife were making good money, and so they bought an air conditioner. And of course, from a capital perspective, they bought the cheapest one they could get. And then in that respect, they would incur higher costs for the life of that entire thing. And that's just so, again, as an engineer, as a development professional, that was just so frustrating. But then, this is about district cooling, right? Not individual units. But governments at times will make those same decisions. And so in that respect, looking at district cooling, you have a high capital cost. It has to be very systematically integrated. So with energy efficiency, with really good urban planning, and in the end, just passing that off to the end user can be the easier solution. Just let them do their individual units. When they fail, they can deal with it, regardless of the savings. So I think one of the things that we're really working on at ADB is to acknowledge the multidisciplinary aspects when it comes to cooling. So that's urban, that's health, that's energy, just to name three. And so integrating that and then working through the urban planning process that was highlighted earlier, I think that's just the base thing that has to be done, making sure it's available. We focus more on district heating in our past, but indeed we're doing that with district cooling as well. So getting it into the planning process, into the policy part, so that you can have it considered. You highlighted that as well, because I don't think everybody considers, especially district cooling. District heating is more well known. And so those are some of the efforts that we're making as we start. We're at the beginning stages of this, and I can highlight some of those experiences in due course.
So moving a bit more east, as we've heard, like this is not everyone has heard of district cooling. We're all here trying to sort of promote the sustainability that it brings, but also how it is responding to urban issues of infrastructure, as well as health and environmental concerns. And so, looking to Cambodia, how are you thinking about district cooling, and is it a growing priority when it comes to the leadership that Cambodia is actually taking in the space of sustainable cooling?
Thank you that invite me to join this event today. I think regarding to the Cambodian government can play the crucial role to establish the enabling environment for the district cooling by creating supportive policy, regulation, and also incentive that can encourage the private sector investment and development, as well as building awareness about the benefit for the sustainable cooling. Yeah. Also, government also can set the clear policy that we can incorporate in the district cooling target into the national policy, like Cambodia climate change strategic plan. And also now Cambodia is also preparing the building code. Yes, we also integrate it into the building code, and as well as the urban planning that we should integrate it to the new urban planning as well. And creating the technical standard and the guideline is also one to ensure that the system are safe, efficiency, and also sustainable. Yeah. And I think as the government, we can support the sustainable urban, as I mentioned earlier, sustainable urban development that we can integrate it, district cooling. Yeah, because it's new for Cambodia to know about the district cooling, and also we can offer the tax incentive or subsidy for the district cooling infrastructure. It could be attract the private sector investment. So this incentive can make district cooling more competitive with the traditional air conditioning. Yeah. So the government can also leverage the public-private partnership model to share the cost or burden with the private sector entity by providing fund or reserve for feasibility study or pilot project, and also can scan up the district cooling infrastructure. So That's all from me.
Thank you. That's very, very encouraging. And I'm a bit sorry for Dr. Lama having left because I think both the companies that he mentioned would have been very happy with what you just shared. Hassan, if I can come back to you, please. I think it would be very interesting for the audience here to hear about the work that Tunisia is doing with Italy and with UNEP in sort of setting up this aggregated initiative for district cooling. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, yes, thank you very much. Really, it's a good opportunity and a good collaboration with Italy and UNEP for to develop the district cooling specifically in Tunisia. Before we let me know that we do some other project, district heating and cooling initiative in Tunisia by the SPLT project that makes stakeholders, ANAMI and SPLT, Ministry of Equipment, and two estimated power needs of 20 megawatt cool. And in total estimated cost 17 million euro. But the main recommendation at this project, and when we show for the financing now, to choose the place with the denser and unbuilt zone to make the project more profitable and reduce the capex. Second one, that with the bank development, we do now with the cooling, district cooling, also heating and cooling, and the Colleen of Bab Saadun. You know, we're 8 big hospital located in Bab Saadun. The objective of this project to reduce the energy consumption, the emission of CO2, and Anton, this project is ongoing now to make the mechanism or develop mechanism, financing mechanism to invest in this project. And now with we make also a Tunisian green cooling program with financing with the green fund, climate fund. To have a program, a promo clean in Tunisia. What I ask to all this because we are concentrated in district cooling. It's very important, certainly in the cooling system and so in air conditioning. But by the way, the cooperation with Italy, it's coming in the best way and best time, because we can identify the technical and economic and policy framework. I underline the framework and the financing mechanism to develop to facilitate the implementation of this technology of this project. The key component of this project is to make the pilot project in district cooling in major urban area in Tunisia, that like hotel, commercial building, and residential complex, and to provide capacity building program, the training for local stakeholders, including all the key actors, and the very famous the regulatory framework we will working on. Because to establish this necessary regulation and incentive to promote district cooling, including tariff structure, subsidies, and technical standards. To accelerate this project in Tunisia, you have many steps to do, like the policy support, also the involvement of the private sector to be engaged in this let me know big opportunity for Tunisia to reduce the consumption and to have a very profitable project, and the public to develop public-private partnership. And the last one, to develop a very profitable financing mechanism to encourage or to facilitate the investment in this field. That's all for my side.
Yeah, thank you for that. David, we've just heard so many keywords when it comes to like financing or incentivizing, district cooling initiatives. I'd like you to pick up actually where you stopped. I know you had more to say about that, but also if you could share with us some examples of financing instruments or innovations, towards funding streams and funding sources that you all have perhaps experimented with or tried, and which ones have worked well for district cooling or heating.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first off, picking up after our speaker from Tunisia as well, one of the things I often say about energy in general is it's technical, financial, social, and political. And I think one of the first things that when I look across energy projects, and I really think it fits with these types of big kind of infrastructure projects, is not trying to push a solution, but once you have buy-in at the political level, to then push forward. Because I think the economics are actually really well suited. And then to go very much specifically into your question, what are the products? I think two main products that we can talk about, and one is a results-based lending, and the other is just a project loan. So project loan, I'm just going to say it's very typical. The great thing is about a development bank is that we can price it appropriately. We hope, by appropriately I mean below market for a developing country. And secondly, we hope to be developing products that will have even more concessionality for climate-based projects. So we can do long-term lending, we can do local currency, we can very much bring in blending with private sector as well. So those types of things allow us to be really flexible and targeted towards developing countries. And I think that's really important. But the more interesting product, I think, is a results-based loan. And this can be suited very much to a state-owned utility that may have engagement on that. And I know state-owned utilities can have pluses and minuses, but in that respect, it often is the entity that would run a district cooling. And a results-based loan is such that upon meeting certain targets, you can disperse the funds that can be used flexibly from a corporate basis by the state-owned utility. Still having those very long tenors, up to 25 years. And so it's very much gives it incentivizes the utility to take the actions that you want from a climate and a sustainability, both financially and from an environmental point of view, but gives them then the flexibility to use the funding where they most need it. And I think this would be a really interesting product to apply to district cooling. And then lastly, I'll simply go back to the other point, pilots. I am just such a fan of pilots for any technology, not to call it a new technology, but a technology a country is not used to. Because once they see it, and you can, again, as a development bank and other partners, we can fund those at higher levels of concessionality to improve the economics, to make it, I'll call it more obvious, because I think there's an obvious rationale to doing this. But you can make it more obvious for them to try. And then once they've done it, then they can say, oh, this really works. Because it has to be in your country. Because if it's in someone else's country, well, that might be different because X or Y or Z. But doing it in your own country. So pilots, and make sure they're successful. Learn from the lessons that you've learned and apply them. And then I really think that can encourage growth.
Thank you. Can I just have a really quick response to when you talk about these long-term loans typically at ADB, like how long do they run for? And these are concessional loans, I'm guessing. If you could share a little bit more about this, because I think it'll be interesting. We have a lot of developing country practitioners watching online.
So first off, ADB is the Asian Development Bank. So just we're focused on Asia.
Yeah.
But of course, there's the World Bank and many other multilateral institutions and that we partner with and who work in every country in the world. So just want to highlight that. So in terms of the when we loan to the state, it's often backed by the state, and that allows us to be very concessional relative to market because we're not pushing out the private sector too much because there's not state. Those who lend to the states are a very unique subset, and we have very clear rules. And the reason I'm highlighting pushing out the private sector or pushing out others, when we lend on the private sector side, we have to be very careful about that because at the end of the day, when we look at the scale of funds that need to be invested in energy sector in general, it's in the trillions, right? So we need the private sector. So if we squeeze them out, they not only don't have the experience, but also don't want to gain that experience in the country. So that's very, very key. And the way we can get concessionality often is where are we additional? If this is the 10th project in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, we don't want to play. And plus, socioeconomically, they probably don't need it. But again, what we try to do is bring down the cost curve and increase the capacity. So first of kind projects are those ones where I think we can bring that concessionality and that again just brings that ability. Lastly, ask. So I know UNEP provides technical assistance. We provide technical assistance. We don't compete, especially on that level. We complement. So maybe ours can be different. It could be bigger, smaller, whatever, fill a gap, whatever that case. If the country asks, we generally have the resources to do it, especially for climate. So ask the question. We can come, talk, and find out what you need and partner with you.
Okay, we're going to come back to that, but thanks for that. If I can maybe, moving back to you, Mr. Lido. Vietnam, cities, urbanization, these are all challenges that your ministry, as all other ministries, I assume, are grappling with, right? But when we see the rate of urbanization that really is happening in countries like yours and mine, I'm from India, it's very important to also think of what's happening at a subnational level, right? So I'd like to hear from you on, the role that city governments are playing with the private sector to think of creating projects around district cooling.
Okay, thank you for this question. So to introduce the district cooling project, so as our Cambodian government is, we have a limit budget to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the cooperation and also the climate finance is important to launch the demonstrate project or pilot project on the cooling. And especially the ADB here is also one of the part of our bank development that we can cooperate, and also the climate finance like GCF, GEF, we can access that fund for the to run the projects for Cambodia. So we also have, I think, Cambodian government also need to cooperate with sustainability, with the private, like real estate development. Yes, that the government can encourage and with them and include the district cooling system as a standard of mid energy efficiency standard. Yeah. And also knowledge sharing and technical assistance program that we can collaborate it with international organization and the country that have experience in district cooling like Singapore and also UAE that has experienced that, so we can learn from that and we can share the experience to the developing country like Cambodia. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Hassan, turning back to you, because I'd like to make this a bit wider now. You've shared in great detail what's happening in Tunisia, your government's thinking about it, the different partnerships you're engaging in. What are some of the lessons you'd like to share with us that others, in the global south who are considering district cooling or perhaps are still not considering district cooling should be thinking about going forward? Sorry, Hassan, can you just give it a second? We can't hear you.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry.
Okay, perfect.
I will say one suggestion that we have particularly all the regional countries have the same concern. I think you must go ahead with this technology or this most important solution. You can make, for example, a regional project to establish all or to have, for example, the regulatory framework, to the mechanism, financial mechanism, appropriate financial mechanism to exchange experience between all region, for example, Egypt, for example, other countries, and you can be the regional project or solution to provide the most important thing, the policy framework, the governance, the financing mechanism appropriate to these countries. After that, you can mobilize you can adopt it by the countries. And after that, you can show the financing by the development banks, as she said, our colleague before. And you can continue with the investment in this very profitable project. For example, for Tunisia now, we have in the government action plan, the district cooling is among the pillar of the energy transition and the action of the energy transition in Tunisia. That's my suggestion, to have a regional project to do together with synergy with other partners to make all the barriers, all the obstacle or les soucis, les soucis, comment dirais-je, like the regulatory first, and the policy framework, the mechanism, financing mechanism. That's all.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that, Hassan. I think there, lessons from Tunisia, which I know is not Asia, but we've heard from Vietnam just earlier this evening. We've heard from Cambodia now. Indonesia is about to launch its cooling action plan. India was the first country to set out a cooling action plan. So clearly the winds of change when it comes to sustainable cooling initiatives are, really deep-rooted now in Asia. And we're wondering, like, the work that you're doing, at ADB in this space of district cooling, like, how is it aligning, with that political motivation to really get things going on sustainable cooling?
So, I think one of the key things that I'll highlight when it comes to, I think, a lot of the current thinking in Indonesia is that under a high growth scenario for their economy, and with respect to finding out what's in it for them, I guess, is the easiest way to say it. The climate and the reduction in air pollution and things like that, I think, are all benefits, but they don't necessarily monetize or quantify those benefits. So it's really, how do you make sure that these systems have an economic value? Because unfortunately, I know we're in COP and we're very much focused on the climate side, but the economics are actually first in that respect. The other thing that I will say is a challenge, and I was reflecting on this just as the earlier panel, one of the ambitions of Indonesia is on manufacturing. And when I think of, just air conditioning units, I can see that export opportunity in addition to the domestic market much more easily. So my hope and my prayer actually is if they choose to manufacture, that they do it with the highest efficiency, because then they can bring down the cost of that. It becomes, as cheap as the lower efficiency, and that they can do that in a way that then really saves them money in the long term, because they have a coal-based power system. So if you have really inefficient air conditioning, you're just going to ramp up that demand. So I know that's not necessarily linked or not necessarily a positive message on district cooling specifically. I think there is a strong appetite to do it if they can define the benefit to them. But I know that their desire to do manufacturing, create jobs in that respect, is going to go towards individual units and that type of approach as well.
But I think, that actually is a really good way for me to be able to come in to conclude this session, because I think as all of us here at COP29, the intent is not to push out a certain technology, right? It's not to force fit something that doesn't work. We've tried that before and we can see where we are, right? COP29. And so I think the intent should remain that, these are partnerships across financing entities, whether it's banks or otherwise, technology providers, governments, regulators, but it needs to be done with a sense of partnership for where it really fits and will be able to maximize, as you noted, is it really helping the health of the economy and of the people? Is it really helping the state and the priorities of that population? And with that, actually, I'd like to say thank you very much. I know that we have Lily, who's here to offer some final thank you remarks. Or, yes. Thank you so much, Hassan.
Merci.
Hi. Good afternoon to all of you here with us today. Thank you so much for joining this really important event on district cooling. District cooling is certainly a cornerstone for both the energy transition and for sustainable cooling, because obviously, as we've heard, by bringing together several buildings, instead of providing cooling on a one-to-one basis, you can actually leverage significant efficiencies and incorporate waste heat and even renewable energy sources that you cannot use at the scale of one building. We see this being done in many cities around the world. Even where I'm living now in Paris, it is completely cooled by district cooling using the River Seine. So it's definitely something that is has been proven for a long time, but remains sort of a sleeping beauty, if I can call it that. And I think there's a significant opportunity for it to be scaled up. Today, I was in an energy action event just before this one, and where we spoke about the energy transition, and several cities brought up the use of district cooling to actually help them not only, again, tackle the challenge of cooling, but actually help them with enabling the energy transition for these reasons. And also being able to use district cooling as an asset for flexibility, for integration of renewables when you couple it with storage is really critical. So I think today's session has shown us that district cooling has a key role in the future of our transition, but also that there's significant challenges to address in terms of how we design our business models and how we raise awareness on the fact that actually district cooling pays back on investment. You just have to design it well. And if you do design it well, you not only get the returns, but you get significant savings. So I hope that it's been informative to everyone, and we will certainly be circulating this so that many people can tap into the lessons learned here today. Thank you very much, and significant thank you also to our partner, Tabreed, and also to our panelists from ADB, Cambodia, and also, of course, our great moderator, Shika, from the UNEP Cool Coalition. Thank you very much. Oh, and we had a Hassan.